standing on it, if you don't know half the time whether you are saved, if you don't know half the time whether God is pleased with your life, ain't no information going to come out of that. Sweetheart, listen, it evaluates really where we are in God.
Yes, yes. Up to that. Yes, yes.
Teach me how to love you. Another way that is through quality time. In loving God, there ought to be a time where He can get your attention and you not have to compete with the Browns.
Oh my.
Well.
And somebody know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There ought to be a time when God can get your attention where He doesn't have to compete with the malls and He don't have to compete with your best friend. There ought to be some quality time when the TV goes off. The window blades are pulled down, and there ought to be a time when the children are put out, and there ought to be a time when, listen, when you get alone with God and just have quality time with God. I like the way Daniel did. Daniel said 3 times a day I would just ice up the window.
3 times.
Sweetheart, listen, there ought to be quality time with God. By the same measure, we ought to have quality time with one another.
Yes.
Oh, God help me here. There ought to be a time, when husband and wife can just slip away.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Really?
There ought to be quality time, Oh, help me, Jesus.
Yes, sir.
Ain't nothing, well, maybe I shouldn't say that.
Say it anyway.
But I tell Sister Williams sometimes, I tell her, sometimes we take time off and go catch a movie and she want to invite this person. I said, no, it's just me and you.
Now, that's it.
Really?
That's it.
Really?
Just us.
This time doing this dinner, no, we're not carrying the members of the church, but on this dinner, we're just going by ourselves. If we're going to learn to love one another, there ought to be a time when we can just look at one another in the face and say how much we love one another. The same thing is true with our God. There ought to be a time when you're still awake in your prayer closet.
Yes, sir.
When you're still awake with God, just to let God know how much you love Him.
That's it.
But sweetheart, listen, if your life is clouded with the things of the world, if your life is clouded with the things that you see, if your life is clouded with the things that are in your flesh, there is no quality time. Every time God calls you, He's got to divide it between somebody else. Yes, I am going to say it. There ought to be a time when you can divide your job from God. And I'm talking about not just Sunday morning either. I'm talking about there ought to be a time in the week when you step in the door and say, I don't want to hear nobody's mouth. I need to get alone and get some time with my God. Pastor, I begin to think very funny if my wife don't want to spend time with just me.
Now, you should. Now.
Something is wrong with Pastor Osborne. If every time we go out to eat, somebody else got to be invited.
Now. All right.
Not good. No.
Lord, know my preaching.
That's not a good thing at all.
Since women now, sometimes when we go out to eat, we just start looking at the different couples. Some couples, they're engrossed within conversation, and then there are some couples, they're looking all up beside the wall.
Wow.
Because they've gotten to the point in their relationship where they have nothing to talk about. Got to the point that they can't even relate to one another anymore. But saints of God, you know what the sad thing is? Sometimes even in the church, we've got folk like that in the church that their relationship with God has grown so cold and so stale that, listen, if the keyboard is not playing, then they ain't got nothing to praise God for. Our lives have grown so lukewarm with God that unless the drummer is giving us a beat, we can't even pick our feet up and give God a proper praise. Saints of God, I come to tell you, when you get it right at home, Tell somebody again and tell them, teach me how to love you. Listen, ain't nothing wrong, and I'm trying to hurry up here. Ain't nothing wrong with us even sometimes taking our sister, brother, say, hey, I just want to take you out. Let's go to McDonald's and grab a burger.
Y'all cost too much. Y'all cost too much.
I like that.
Y'all too much. Y'all too much. Too much. Too much.
Y'all ain't fooling me. Y'all ain't got to proper goals and uses and all that. Sometimes we just need to tell people, I got a little bit. You and I just go and get the dollar bill. That's just me and you.
Well, a double cheeseburger is $1.19. That's not the dollar bill. I thought y'all knew.
Right there. Sometimes the deacon boys, the brothers that need to go and cash it. Been fussing and fighting in the finance room. Oh, God, help me. You know, if we spent more quality time every time we heard a rumor about somebody, and instead of listening here, we say, I know I was born. I was born ain't like that. I know I was born. That's why the Bible says you ought to know those that labor among you. Ought to be time when you spend some quality time with folks. Ought to be able to call them up on the telephone without lifting somebody else up. I'm talking about, Lord, teach me how to love you. You see, when you spend quality time with God, God teaches you how to really love him. Because see, something is wrong when you've got to invite things into your relationship all the time. I don't know about you, but when I came down to the altar, it was just me and my God. I didn't need nobody to hook me up. I didn't need nobody to plug me in. But when I came down the aisle to Jesus, I threw my hands up and said, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Give me about 10 more minutes and I'm going to be through. There ought to be a receiving of gifts. There ought to be a receiving of gifts. When you really love somebody, you may not be able to give them a 2-carat diamond. That's right. But there ought to be a continual receiving of gifts. You see, I know Sister Williams like Hershey's with the almonds in it. Oh my. So sometime on my way back from the store, Minister Gibson, you know, I stop in the aisle and I won't get the small boy, but I get the... It's not so much what the gift was, but it's the thought of the gift. Because it lets somebody know that, listen, I really care about you. Let me help you a little bit. Listen, if he ain't, I'm not trying to get in your marriage, but if he ain't bringing you a gift every now and then, if you can't afford a dozen, just bring one red rose home. Lay it on a pillow and tell her, I really... Your 10 o'clock hour will be better if you do it sometime. But see, the same thing is true about our God. There ought to be a continual receiving of gifts. Not that God needs anything